You've got my body, but you'll never have my heart. That's what Audrey Hayes told me, her voice cold and proud, as she turned her face away, lying in bed on our wedding night. I just smiled. Hooking a finger under her exquisite chin, I made her look at me, my voice a casual drawl. I only need your body, baby. What good's a heart to me? You're an ass, she hissed, enraged. You've got my body, but you'll never have my heart. Our wedding night. The crimson sheets were pristine, meticulously smooth, but the air held no celebratory warmth. It was as cold as a meat locker. My new wife, Audrey, lay on the edge of the bed in a conservative silk nightgown, her back to me, every strand of her hair screaming defiance. I just showered, my hair still dripping, leaning against the doorframe, watching her rigid back. Oh, I murmured, drying my hair as I casually strolled over, flopping onto the bed. The mattress sank considerably beneath my weight. I could feel her body tense instantly. Leaning closer, my warm breath ghosted against her pale ear, and I distinctly saw the fine hairs on it stand on end. Ms. Hayes, we're in a contract marriage, a mutually beneficial arrangement. I want the money, and you need a husband status to solidify your position at Hayes Industries and to appease your ailing grandpa. I hooked a finger under her pointed chin, forcing her to turn and face me. Her eyes, bright and sharp like obsidian shards, blazed with fury and humiliation. I only need your body. What good's your heart to me? Can I eat it? I grinned, showing off what I consider my most devilish smirk. Ethan Vance, you bastard, she spat, her voice low, struggling to push my hand away. Her strength was minimal, more like a kitten scratch. Yeah, I'm a bastard. I admitted freely, my grip firm and unyielding. First clause of the agreement. In public, we're a loving couple. Second, when you need my presence, I'm there. Third, and most important, in 1 year you pay me $10 million and we go our separate ways, no strings attached. I paused, looking at her cheeks, flushed with anger, then added, of course, as your husband, I have the right to conjugal duties. That's also in the contract. The fury in her eyes instantly morphed into panic. You wouldn't dare. Just watch me. I smiled, releasing her and standing up, walking to the closet. Don't worry, I'm tired tonight, not in the mood. But don't use that tone with me. I respond better to honey than vinegar. I pulled a comforter from the closet and tossed it onto the floor. I'll sleep on the floor. Just a heads up, Ms. Hayes, tomorrow we're heading to your grandpa's estate for dinner. Don't show up looking like someone just stole your last dollar. Your grandpa's heart isn't great. He can't handle stress. With that, I flipped off the light and lay down on my makeshift bed. In the dark, I could hear her ragged, breathing, slowly calm. She probably thought I was just some lowlife who'd do anything for money. Fine by me. Old man, you asked me to protect your granddaughter, but you never said I couldn't collect a little interest along the way. I closed my eyes, a scene flashing in my mind. An old man on a hospital bed, clutching my hand tightly. Ethan, I've trusted no one my entire life. Only you. Help me protect Audrey, just 1 year. Once she's fully in control of Hayes Industries, you're free. The Hayes family, it's a deep ocean. I open my eyes, staring at the ceiling. Deep ocean? Perfect. I love a good fishing trip. The next morning, I was woken by the smell of breakfast wafting from the living room. I walked into the dining room to find Audrey already dressed in a sharp business suit, elegantly sipping coffee and reading the financial news. A refined breakfast was laid out, a sandwich, a fried egg, milk, just one serving. I pulled out a chair opposite her. Mrs. Jenkins, the housekeeper, emerged from the kitchen, her gaze on me overtly disdainful. Mrs. Jenkins, where's my breakfast? I asked. She managed a tight, fake smile. Sir, I only prepared for Ms. Hayes. Yours. I'm not familiar with your tastes. A little power play, huh? Audrey didn't even look up, turning a page of her newspaper. Mrs. Jenkins, we'll have one more person for meals from now on. Just prepare accordingly. Understood, Ms. Hayes, Mrs. Jenkins replied grudgingly, turning back to the kitchen. I picked up the milk and took a long swig. Audrey's brow furrowed. That's mine. It's mine now. I set the empty glass down, then picked up her sandwich and took a big bite. Not bad. You need to watch your figure anyway. Why eat so much? Ethan Vance. She finally slapped the newspaper onto the table, her icy eyes fixed on me. What? So loud, you startled me. I feigned innocence, just fulfilling my husbandly duties. What's wrong with taking a bite of your sandwich? I was quite the gentleman sleeping on the floor last night. Her chest heaved with anger, but she eventually held it back. She knew arguing with a scoundrel like me would only diminish her. She stood up, grabbing her car keys and purse. I'm going to the office. I'll pick you up at 5 to head to the estate. Got it, wifey darling. He waved to her. She paused, but didn't turn around, her heels clicking faster on the floor. Once she left, the entire house fell silent. I leisurely finished a bland bowl of ramen misses. Jenkins eventually brought me, then began to familiarize myself with my new home. The villa was large, 3 stories with a small garden. Audrey probably thought I was idle, spending my days sleeping and playing video games. She didn't know that as I lay on the couch, tiny earbuds in my ears, I was listening to the latest developments of Hayes Industries' main competitors. She thought I was grinning stupidly at my computer screen because I was watching cat videos. She didn't know the screen displayed a topological map of her company's internal network. Every node, every vulnerability, crystal clear to me. The old man didn't just want a bodyguard to protect her. At 4:30, the doorbell rang. On the monitor, I saw a face that made my stomach churn. Brandon Lee, a slick, preppy trust fund kid, one of Audrey's many suitors, and the son of Robert Lee, whose family empire, Lee Group, was Hayes Industries' bitter rival. I opened the door, lazily leaning against the frame. Who are you? Where's Audrey? Brandon's brows furrowed into a knot, seeing me in casual clothes and slippers. I'm her husband. You looking for my wife? I picked up my ear. Brandon's expression was like he'd swallowed a fly. Shock, disdain, then fury. Her husband? You? Don't be ridiculous. Audrey would never be seen with trash like you. He eyed me up and down as if I were a pile of garbage. Can't help it. She's got surprisingly unique taste. I shrugged. If you don't have anything else, please leave. You're blocking the good energy from entering my house. You. Brandon fumed, pointing at me. Listen, buddy, I don't care who you are. Stay away from Audrey. You're not good enough for her. Just then, a red Porsche pulled up, and Audrey got out. Her brow furrowed when she saw Brandon, and then her face grew even colder when she saw me, looking so lackadaisical. Brandon, what are you doing here? Brandon instantly put on a pained, earnest face, pointing at me to complain. Audrey, who is this guy? He actually said he's your husband. Don't tell me you fell for some pretty boy like him. I chuckled, amused. Pretty boy. After all the sun and wind I've been through, I'm nowhere near that. Audrey shot me a cold glance, then told Brandon, he is indeed my husband, Ethan Vance. We're married. Brandon looked as if he'd been struck by lightning, his face pale. Impossible. Audrey, why would you do this? Did your family force you? Tell me, I'll help you. He excitedly grabbed Audrey's arm. I stepped forward, gently nudging his hand away. Mr. Lee, please show my wife some respect. My voice wasn't loud, but Brandon felt a jolt in his wrist, as if it had been clamped by an iron vise. He looked at me, bewildered and wary. Audrey shook him off, her tone impatient. Brandon, this is my private matter. We're going to the estate. Excuse us. She walked into the house without a backward glance at me. I knew she was mad that I'd deliberately provoked Brandon, making her uncomfortable. I followed her in, and before closing the door, I made a goofy face at Brandon, who was still standing there, stunned. Serves you right, jerk. On the way to Grandpa Hayes' estate, the atmosphere in the car was colder than a Siberian winter. Audrey focused on driving, the lines of her profile taut. Are you pleased with yourself? She suddenly asked. Pretty much. Seeing a rival get stomped, any man would be a little pleased. I replied honestly. She glared at me in the rearview mirror. Ethan Vance, lose that street thug act. If you dare say one wrong word in front of Grandpa, our agreement is terminated immediately. Terminated? What about my 10 million? I pretended to be very worried. She was choked for words, only able to stomp harder on the accelerator. The Hayes family estate was a sprawling, historic property with ornate gardens and architecture, but the minds of the people living there were anything but old-fashioned. The moment we stepped inside, aunts and uncles swarmed us, their gazes scanning me like x-rays. Well, is this Audrey's husband? He looks quite spirited. What do you do for a living? A stout woman, Audrey's Aunt Brenda asked. Unemployed. Staying home. I replied honestly. A ripple went through the crowd. Their eyes shifted from scrutiny to blatant disdain. Audrey's face instantly paled, and she pinched my arm hard. I bit back a wince and kept smiling. Staying home, how nice. Means our Audrey is capable. She can afford to support her husband, a man with a sharp, weaselly face. Audrey's Uncle Ted said sardonically. Exactly. Audrey's acting CEO of Hayes Industries now. It's perfectly normal for her to find a man to enjoy life at home. All sorts of unpleasant comments reached my ears. Audrey's body trembled slightly. I took her hand, her skin ice cold. She tried to pull away, but I held on tight. You're all too kind. Aunts and uncles. I began, my voice not loud, but it quieted the noisy living room. I'm not particularly talented, just lucky enough to marry a good wife. But even though I don't work, I'm not a freeloader. I handle all the cleaning, laundry, cooking, plumbing repairs, and light bulb changes at home. My Audrey works so hard out there. I need to make sure she comes home to a comfortable environment. Don't you agree? My words were impeccably delivered. I admitted my lack of talent, yet painted myself as a thoughtful house husband and subtly boosted Audrey's image. The relatives were momentarily stumped for a retort, their expressions awkward. Audrey shot me a surprised glance, her struggles to pull her hand away ceasing. All right, everyone's here. Just waiting for you two. Come sit. A stern voice boomed as Grandpa Hayes emerged, leaning on his cane, assisted by a caretaker. Despite his illness, his eyes were still sharp. He looked at me, giving a slight nod. At the dinner table, the atmosphere was a minefield. Uncle Ted constantly brought up company business, subtly hinting at Audrey's supposed incompetence and the stagnation of several projects. Audrey, it's not like I haven't told you. The South Loop project, the Lees are eyeing that too. Your proposal, it's too conservative. Several board members have concerns. In my opinion, it would be better if... Audrey's face grew increasingly strained, but she couldn't openly snap at him in front of her grandpa. I picked up a pork rib and placed it in her bowl, interrupting Uncle Ted. Sweetheart, eat more. You look so thin, I said cheerfully. I don't understand company stuff, but that South Loop land, I passed by it on a walk the other day. It's got good energy, a real prime spot, facing the water with hills behind it. But I heard there's an old fallout shelter underground, pretty ancient, so the foundation might not be too stable. Building a high-rise there might be a little risky, wouldn't you say? I spoke casually, as if relaying neighborhood gossip. The dinner table instantly fell silent. Uncle Ted's face turned ghastly pale, as if he'd seen a ghost. Audrey whipped her head around to look at me, her eyes wide with shock. The geological issues with the South Loop project were classified information her team had worked tirelessly to uncover, intending to use it as leverage for a surprise during the next bidding war against the Lees. How did I know? And why was I saying it so casually? I winked at her, then picked up some greens and put them in her bowl. Here, eat your veggies. Good for your skin. Grandpa Hayes gave me a deep look, a flicker of shrewdness in his cloudy eyes, then raised his glass. All right, everyone eat. No business talk. This is a family dinner. Let's be cheerful. The meal was fraught with unspoken tensions. On the drive back, Audrey remained silently at the wheel. But this time, the car's atmosphere wasn't icy, but a complex quiet. How did you know about the South Loop property? She finally couldn't hold back. Oh, I heard, I said, leaning back in my seat, eyes closed. The old folks in the neighborhood, they talk about everything. Ethan Vance. She pulled the car to the side of the road, turning to look at me seriously. Who exactly are you? Your husband. I opened my eyes, meeting her scrutinizing gaze, smiling innocently. An unemployed guy who wants to make $10 million and retire. She stared at me for a long time, as if trying to find a flaw in my expression. But my face, forged through countless trials, revealed nothing but handsomeness. Finally, she gave up, restarting the car. Next week, the company has an important reception. The partners are from overseas, very crucial. You'll come with me. Her tone was no longer a command, but a suggestion. Is there overtime pay? I asked. She didn't respond, but the car sped up a bit. I knew the ice around her heart was starting to crack. In the days leading up to the reception, Audrey was running ragged. often not returning home until past midnight. I enjoyed the peace and quiet, spending my days listening in on business intelligence, studying recipes, and mentally critiquing Mrs. Jenkins cooking again and again. Mrs. Jenkins went from glaring at me to actively avoiding the kitchen whenever I stepped in. Friday afternoon, I was watering Audrey's struggling succulents in the garden when her frantic call came through. "Ethan, get to the office now." Her voice carried an unmistakable urgency and exhaustion. "What's wrong, wifey? Miss me? Stop with the nonsense. The company servers have been hacked. All our data is locked. To get over here. I'm not a programmer. What am I going to do? Cheer you on," I said, even as I headed for the garage. "Brandon said he knows someone who can fix it, but he wants me to agree to a condition." Audrey's voice was filled with disgust. I refused to beg him. "Hang tight. I'll be there in 20. I hung up and started the engine of the domestic SUV Audrey despised and kept banished to the garage. The Porsche was too flashy. I preferred the low-key vibe. Hayes Industries Tower, top floor. When I arrived, the IT department outside the CEO's office was a total circus. A group of plaid-shirt elites crowded around several computers, sweating profusely, completely stumped. Audrey stood outside the crowd, pale-faced. She looked at me as if I were a savior, though she probably didn't even realize it herself. "What's the situation?" I asked, walking over. A middle-aged man who looked like the CTO sighed. "It's no good, Ms. Hayes. The attacker is a top-tier pro. The firewall was breached in an instant, and all files are encrypted with a new type of ransomware. We can't crack it. They're demanding $100 million, or they'll delete everything." I glanced at the arrogant red skull icon on the screen. Isn't that Shadow's usual trick? I kicked his ass all over the desert 3 years ago. Now he's picking on little girls? "Let me try," I said, squeezing into the crowd. The CTO looked at me unhappily. "Who are you? Don't make things worse. This isn't a game." Audrey hesitated, then spoke. "He's my husband." Everyone's eyes on me immediately turned strange. There was disdain, curiosity, contempt. They were probably all thinking, "Isn't this that freeloader? What does he know?" I ignored them, simply lifting a keyboard warrior out of his seat and sliding into the chair myself. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" I said nothing, my hands hovering over the keyboard. In that instant, my entire demeanor changed. If just moments ago I was a lazy slacker, now I was a general about to enter battle. My fingers flew across the keyboard, a blur of motion. On the screen, countless lines of code cascaded like a waterfall, various windows constantly popping up and closing. The office was dead silent. Everyone was stunned by my speed. They couldn't understand what I was doing, only that it was dazzling and awe-inspiring. Audrey stood behind me, her eyes wide, her red lips slightly parted, her mind momentarily blank. The man she saw now was not the lazy scoundrel, but a focused, confident, fatally attractive stranger. Done. In less than 5 minutes, I hit the final enter key. The arrogant red skull on the screen flickered twice, turned into a crying clown emoji, then with a pop, vanished. All the locked files were restored to their original state. How is this possible? The CTO stammered, rushing over to check the data. The virus is gone. Files are intact. Oh my God. Others erupted in cheers. I stretched, stood up, and said to a dumbfounded Audrey, "Wifey, I'm hungry. What's for dinner?" She still hadn't recovered from the shock, just staring at me blankly. "All right." I turned and walked to the CTO, pointing at an IP address on the screen. "This address, it's from your company's internal network. Someone on the inside. As for who, you'll have to investigate yourself." With that, I took Audrey, still in a daze, and walked into the CEO's office, past the awestruck crowd. I closed the door, shutting out the commotion. Audrey finally snapped out of it, shaking off my hand and advancing towards me, her beautiful eyes filled with inquiry, suspicion, and a hint of adoration, which she herself hadn't noticed. "Ethan Vance, who exactly are you?" This was the second time she'd asked me that. "An unemployed guy who can fix computers," I said, leaning against her desk, resuming my carefree attitude. "Fix computers?" She scoffed. "A world-class hacker couldn't last 5 minutes against you. And you call that fixing computers? Just lucky. I shrugged. Maybe the hacker had an upset stomach today and wasn't at his best. You're still lying to me. Her voice suddenly rose, her emotions getting the better of her. You understand feng shui, you're incredibly skilled in combat, and you're a top-tier computer expert. You're nothing like what you pretend to be. What's your real purpose in getting close to me? Watching her eyes well up with angry tears, I sighed inwardly. This woman, usually so sharp, why did she get so insecure when things got complicated? I stepped forward, reaching out to gently wipe away a tear at the corner of her eye. She stiffened but didn't pull away. My purpose. I gazed into her eyes, enunciating each word. It's simple. I'm after your money, and I'm after you. Her face flushed crimson, from her cheeks all the way to her earlobes. You pervert! She stepped back, biting her lip and scolding me. But her voice had lost its previous coldness, replaced by a touch of a young woman's petulance. I knew the ice was almost gone. After the hacker incident, I became a legend within Hayes Industries. While no one knew my true identity, the rumor of the CEO's mysterious husband is a hidden genius spread like wildfire. The IT guy's stares changed from disdain to admiration. Mrs. Jenkins started asking what I wanted for dinner. The biggest change came from Audrey. She no longer spoke to me with cold sarcasm. While still maintaining her Ice Queen facade, the icicles in her eyes had significantly dwindled. She would tacitly allow me to ride in her car to the office, and when I accidentally picked up her cup to drink, she'd only glare at me instead of throwing the cup away. The reception proceeded as planned. I put on the suit Audrey had picked out for me, and I had to admit, the woman had good taste. The suit fit perfectly, highlighting my broad shoulders, narrow waist, and long legs. Clothes really do make the man. The ancients weren't kidding. I preened, adjusting my tie in the mirror. Audrey stood behind me, looking at my reflection, her gaze a little unfocused. Let's go. She averted her eyes, walking out first, her earlobes slightly pink. The reception was held in the ballroom on the top floor of a five-star hotel. It was a dazzling scene of elegance and clinking glasses. The moment Audrey appeared, she became the center of attention. She wore a silver backless gown that evening, noble and distant, like a goddess bathed in moonlight, drawing countless admiring glances. As her escort, I naturally received my share of scrutinizing looks. Is that Ms. Hayes' husband? Doesn't look like much. I heard he's a freeloader. Wonder what Ms. Hayes is thinking. She'll keep it down. That company hack last week? He's the one who fixed it. Heard he's a real pro. I held Audrey's arm, ignoring the whispers, a polite smile on my face. Our partner, Global Capital, is very important to us this time. Their representative is Mr. Davies, a notorious old fox, very difficult to deal with. Audrey whispered in my ear. Don't worry, your husband's got this. I squeezed her hand. Her hand was soft, but a little cool. Soon we met Mr. Davies, a white man in his 50s, with a hooked nose and blue eyes, smiling like a cunning fox. Next to him stood someone neither of us wanted to see, Brandon Lee. Brandon's eyes practically shot flames when he saw us, especially when he saw me intimately holding Audrey's arm. Ms. Hayes, long time no see. You're as charming as ever. Mr. Davies said in fluent English, shaking Audrey's hand, his gaze briefly flicking to me. Mr. Davies, a pleasure, Audrey replied politely. And this gentleman, Mr. Davies looked at me. My husband, Ethan Vance, Audrey introduced. Oh, Mr. Vance then. Mr. Davies smiled but didn't shake my hand, turning instead to Brandon. Brandon, allow me to introduce Ms. Audrey Hayes, the CEO of Hayes Industries. Brandon immediately stepped forward, triumphantly telling Audrey, Audrey, I forgot to tell you, Lee Group is now Global Capital's exclusive strategic partner in the U.S. This South Loop project, our family intends to win it. He was clearly trying to provoke her. Audrey's face darkened. She hadn't expected the Lees to move so fast, getting a jump on them with Global Capital. Is that so? We'll see who's more capable, Audrey said. Ms. Hayes is still so confident, Mr. Davies chuckled. However, business is like a battlefield. Sometimes, strength isn't just about company size. Connections and relationships are also very important. He spoke with an underlying meaning, his gaze flitting between Brandon and Audrey, clearly implying that the Lee family now had his backing, and if Audrey wanted to collaborate, she'd need to show some sincerity. Mr. Davies is absolutely right. I suddenly spoke, drawing everyone's attention. I picked up a glass of champagne and walked towards Mr. Davies, speaking in impeccable British English. Relationships are indeed crucial in business. But a relationship built on a shaky foundation, with a partner who lacks integrity, is more like a liability than an asset. Wouldn't you agree? Both Mr. Davies and Brandon were momentarily stunned. Mr. Davies hadn't expected this man, who looked like mere arm candy, to speak such flawless English, and with such a biting edge. Brandon, for his part, hadn't understood a word. Audrey also looked at me in surprise. She knew I spoke English, but not this well. Mr. Davies's expression shifted, losing his foxy smile. Mr. Vance, you seem to have a strong opinion. Not an opinion, just a friendly reminder. I swirl my champagne glass, continuing in English. I heard Lee Corporation has some accounting irregularities recently. For a company like Global Capital, reputation is everything. Partnering with a ticking time bomb might not be the wisest move. The Lee Group's financial fraud was something I'd overheard a couple of days ago, not yet public. My words were like planting a seed of doubt in Mr. Davies's mind. Mr. Davies's blue eyes narrowed. He stared intently at me, as if trying to see through me. Brandon, though he didn't understand, sensed the shift in atmosphere and hastily asked, Mr. Davies, what did he say? Mr. Davies ignored him, raising his glass to me. Mr. Vance, you are a very interesting man. Perhaps we can have a private chat later. My pleasure. I smiled, clinking my glass against his. An invisible confrontation had temporarily concluded. Brandon tried to interject again, but I silenced him with a stare. We moved to a quiet corner, and Audrey finally let out a breath, looking at me as if I were some kind of marvel. You even knew about the Lee family's financial issues? I've heard things, I said, taking a sip of champagne, my tone casual. Ethan Vance. She took a deep breath, the expanse of bare skin on her chest rising and falling, making me a little parched. Thank you. It was the first time she'd sincerely thanked me. Just a thank you? I leaned closer, inhaling the faint scent of her perfume. How about something more substantial? I pointed to my cheek. Her face reddened again, but this time she didn't call me a pervert. Instead, she turned her head slightly and whispered, Later, when we get home. I smiled. The ice was not only melting, it was getting a little hot to the touch. Midway through the reception, Audrey went off to speak with some potential clients. I found myself bored, standing in a corner, playing the role of a proper arm candy. Brandon, unwilling to give up, approached again, flanked by two bodyguards who looked like trouble. Ethan Vance, don't get too smug, Brandon hissed, his face contorted. You think a few fancy words can scare me? I'm telling you, Audrey is mine, and the South Loop project is mine. You freeloader, get lost. A defeated foe, why bark? I didn't even bother looking at him. You're asking for it. Brandon was enraged, giving a signal to the bodyguards behind him. The two bodyguards closed in on me from left and right. I inwardly sneered. These two rookies? Holding my champagne glass, I subtly shifted my body, narrowly dodging the grab from the left while flicking my wrist. The champagne in my glass splashed precisely into the right-hand man's eyes. Ah! The man cried out, clutching his face. The left-hand man paused, and my elbow shot back like lightning, hitting him square in the stomach. He grunted, doubled over, and dropped to his knees. The entire exchange took less than 3 seconds, so fast that most people didn't even see what happened. I placed the empty champagne glass on a passing waiter's tray and told the stunned Brandon, Go tell your dad to clean up his books. Otherwise, next week, Lee Group stock will look very interesting. With that, I straightened my suit as if nothing had happened and walked towards Audrey. Brandon stared at the two bodyguards sprawled on the floor, his face ashen. He finally realized I wasn't someone he could mess with. When I found Audrey, she was chatting with Mr. Davies. Mr. Davies' eyes lit up when he saw me. He politely ended his conversation with Audrey and walked over to me. Mr. Vance, I've just checked some information. You are a very, very interesting man. Mr. Davies' demeanor was far more respectful than before. Oh, what did you find? I knew he'd definitely used his intelligence network, but what they could find was only what I wanted them to find. Nothing specific. That's what makes it interesting. Mister. Davies smiled meaningfully. I think about the project in the south of the city. I should have a talk with Ms. Hayes again. He nodded at me and walked away. Audrey came to my side, her face full of questions. What did he say to you? Why did he suddenly change his mind? I told him your husband is handsome, and he was completely charmed by my charisma. She rolled her eyes at me, exasperated, but couldn't suppress a slight smile at the corner of her lips. Can't you ever be serious? After the reception, we drove home. As the car drove down a secluded road, I suddenly frowned. Hold on, I told Audrey. The words were barely out of my mouth when I sharply swerved the steering wheel. The car executed a beautiful drift, narrowly avoiding a black van that had suddenly accelerated and was surging up behind us. Screech! The ear-splitting sound of brakes pierced the night. The van missed us, coming to a halt across the road. 7 or 8 burly men, armed with steel pipes, jumped out and aggressively surrounded us. Audrey's face turned ashen with fear. Who are they? Collection agents? Probably. I calmly unbuckle my seatbelt. Stay in the car. Lock the doors. Ethan, don't go out there. Call the police. She grabbed my arm, her voice trembling. No time. I patted her hand, giving her a reassuring look. Don't worry, just a few little rats. I pushed open my door and stepped out, closing it behind me. The leader, a man with a scarred face, sneered, stepping forward. Kid, you pissed off the wrong person. Tonight, you're going to learn a lesson. I flexed my wrists, making them crack. Brandon sent you? Scarface paused. You? How did you know? Too much talking. I couldn't be bothered with them anymore. I moved, charging directly into the group. Inside the car, Audrey gripped her fists tightly, her heart in her throat. Through the window, she could only see confused, shadowy figures outside. She heard the dull thud of fists meeting flesh, the crisp snap of bone, and muffled screams. The entire process was much quicker than she'd imagined. In less than 2 minutes, the outside grew quiet. She saw me open the car door, get back in, still in my crisp suit, not a single wrinkle. Outside the car, the 7 or 8 burly men were sprawled on the ground, groaning in agony. I started the car, drove around them, and sped off. The car was eerily silent, with only the sound of our breathing. After a long time, Audrey finally found her voice, a slight tremor in it. What exactly did you do before? A man who possessed top-tier hacking skills, understood business operations, and could disarm and take down 7 or 8 armed thugs barehanded in 2 minutes. How could he possibly be a simple, unemployed man? The image she had of me shattered completely, then reformed into a vast and mysterious enigma. I didn't answer her, only reached out and took her cold hand in mine. Don't be scared. I'm here. My hand was warm, dry, and conveyed a reassuring strength. Audrey looked at my profile, the streetlights casting flickering shadows on my face. She suddenly felt that, though this man was mysterious and his mouth was bad, as long as she was by his side, there was nothing to fear. This feeling was security, a feeling she had never experienced with any man in her 20-plus years. Back home, Audrey was still shaken. She sat on the sofa, clutching a cushion, her eyes a little vacant. I took off my suit jacket, tossed it aside, and rolled up my sleeves. Hungry? I'll make you some ramen. She didn't speak, just nodded. Mrs. Jenkins was already asleep. The vast kitchen was empty save for me. I opened the fridge. The ingredients were all there. I took out 2 eggs, some greens, and a choice cut of beef. Chopping vegetables, kneading dough, boiling water. Soon, the rhythmic sounds of chopping and boiling water filled the kitchen. In the living room, Audrey listened to these comforting, everyday sounds, her taut nerves slowly relaxing. She'd never realized how good a man's busy back could look in a kitchen. Soon, a steaming bowl of rich beef ramen was placed before her. The noodles were springy, the broth savory and deep, topped with a golden poached egg, a few vibrant green vegetables, and thinly sliced beef. The aroma was intoxicating, making the mouth water. Eat, I said, handing her chopsticks. She took them and began to eat silently. She ate slowly, quietly. I could see moisture gathering in her eyes, but she kept her head down, not letting the tears fall. I said nothing, just sat beside her, quietly keeping her company. When she finished the bowl, she put it down and looked up at me. Ethan Vance, in my study safe, there's a backup plan for the South Loop project. It's much more aggressive than the one I showed Mr. Davies, but the risks are also huge. I haven't dared to use it. Her suddenly telling me this surprised me. This was top-tier business confidential. And then I asked. I was wondering if you could help me take a look. She said a little awkwardly, clearly unaccustomed to asking for help. Sure, I nodded. But looking at the plan comes with a fee. She paused, then understood my meaning, a blush rising on her cheeks. What do you want now? I stood up, walked to her, bent down, and whispered in her ear, it's simple. No more sleeping in separate rooms. Her body stiffened, her breathing stopped. You wish. She pushed me away, stood up, and scurried upstairs like a startled deer. I watched her fleeing back and laughed aloud. This woman, she's clearly falling for me, but still putting on a tough front. The next day was Saturday, and I indulged in a rare sleep-in. When I woke, Audrey was already gone. A breakfast and a note were left on the dining table. The handwriting, like her, was elegant and precise. I'm at the office. The safe combination is my birthday. I smiled, tucking the note away. After breakfast, I went into her study. The study was large, with one wall a floor-to-ceiling window, the other a massive bookshelf filled with books ranging from economics to philosophy and history, a wide array of interests. I found the safe and entered her birthday. I made a mental note of the numbers. Inside the safe, a single document lay quietly. I took it out, sat in her desk chair, and began to read it carefully. Her backup plan was indeed bold. The core idea was to abandon traditional real estate development and instead utilize the underground fallout shelter in the South Loop to create Asia's largest underground commercial complex and disaster shelter. The concept was incredibly forward-thinking. If successful, it would have immense commercial value and profound social significance. But as she said, the risks were extremely high. Technical difficulty, capital investment, government approval. Every step was a colossal challenge. I looked at the plan, my fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. In my mind, a larger, crazier plan was slowly taking shape. This plan would not only ensure Audrey's proposal was perfectly executed, but also uproot the Leaf family entirely. I pulled out my phone and dialed an encrypted number. Hello, it's me. Boss, you finally remembered me. You've been gone for almost half a year. We thought you eloped with some pretty girl. A boisterous voice came from the other end. Cut the crap, Jax. Help me look up a few things. I relayed the information I needed. No problem, boss. You got it. Within 3 days, I'll have their entire family tree dug up for you, guaranteed. I hung up, leaning back in the chair, looking at the sky outside the window. Audrey, you just keep charging forward. I'll handle all the storms behind you. On Monday, Audrey returned to the office and immediately convened her core team, presenting the backup plan. In the conference room, everyone was shocked by the audacious proposal. Ms. Hayes, this is too risky. Just the technical challenges of renovating the fallout shelter are beyond us. Exactly, and the funding gap is enormous. Our company's cash flow can't sustain it. The government won't approve it either. It doesn't fit urban planning. Objections rose one after another. Audrey sat at the head of the table, her face calm, but her tightly clenched fists betrayed her tension. Just then, the conference room door was pushed open. I walked in leisurely, carrying a cup of coffee. Wifey, in a meeting? I brought you some coffee to perk you up. I placed the coffee in front of Audrey. Everyone looked at me as if I were insane. Audrey was exasperated and helpless. What are you doing here? Get out. Don't be so quick to dismiss me. I ignored her, walking to the projector screen and picking up the remote pointer, drawing a few circles on the massive conceptual design for the underground commercial complex. Technical issues? I've got people for that. Switzerland's TerraCore Solutions engineering team specializes in these kinds of challenges. I have some connections with their boss. Funding issues? I'll get global capital to invest. That old fox, Mr. Davies, has more faith in this concept than you do. Government approval? Even less of a problem. I just got word that next month, the government will release a new policy on dual-purpose urban development, combining defense and civilian uses. Your plan fits perfectly. By then, it won't be you asking the government. It'll be the government coming to you. With each sentence I spoke, the conference room grew quieter. When I finished, the entire room was so silent you could hear a pin drop. Everyone looked at me, as if I were a god descended from the heavens. Audrey was utterly dumbfounded, her mouth agape, unable to utter a single word. Every point I made precisely hit the pain points of the plan and offered solutions she hadn't even dared to dream of. How do you know all this? She stammered. I guessed, I said, tossing the remote pointer aside, walking to her side, and leaning in to whisper in her ear. So, wifey, am I a decent house husband after all? Her face instantly turned bright red. She dared not look at me, only picked up her coffee cup and pretended to drink. After that, everything unfolded exactly as I predicted. I made one call, and the next day, experts from the top Swiss engineering team flew over. After a friendly and in-depth private conversation with me, Mr. Davies not only agreed to invest, but also voluntarily increased their funding by 20%. A month later, the new national policy was released, and Hayes Industries' Underground City project became a flagship government-supported initiative. Audrey's position in the company was as solid as a rock, and I remained the unemployed man who cooked and took walks every day. Only, the way Audrey looked at me was becoming increasingly peculiar. She would sneak glances at me, then quickly avert her gaze when I looked back. She started asking if I was tired today, what I wanted for dinner. She even, when I accidentally slept in her bed, just kicked me to the side of the bed instead of straight off it. That evening, I was playing games in the study when an unfamiliar number called. I answered, and a clear female voice spoke. Hello, is this Reaper? Reaper was my old code name. I frowned. Wrong number. Don't pretend, boss. It's Skylar. I found your address. I'm coming to visit tomorrow. I'm busy. I hung up directly. This Skylar, she used to be our team's comms and intel specialist, a quirky chatterbox. I hadn't expected her to call the landline after I hung up. At that moment, Audrey happened to be coming downstairs for a glass of water. She picked up the phone. I watched her face change from confusion to surprise, then to utter coldness. She said nothing, just silently replaced the receiver, then looked at me, her gaze colder than when we first got married. After that, she turned and went upstairs, slamming her bedroom door shut. I stood there stunned. Crap, this is a huge misunderstanding. Skylar, that big mouth, must have said something she shouldn't have on the phone. Like, boss, are you keeping a mistress? Or boss, don't forget your brothers and sisters out here. Stuff like that. I walked to her door and knocked. Audrey, let me explain. No response from inside. I sighed. This damn inexplicable jealousy. A little troublesome, but actually feels pretty good. For the next 3 days, Audrey didn't say a single word to me. She treated me like I was invisible. In the morning, she drove herself to work. In the evening, she returned late and went straight to her room, locking the door. The meals I cooked, she wouldn't touch. Mrs. Jenkins watched us both, worried sick, and secretly asked me, Sir, did you upset Ms. Hayes? I gave a wry smile. Something like that. I tried to explain, but she wouldn't give me a chance. The moment I approached her, she radiated a do not approach chill. I then realized that once an iceberg melts, if it refreezes, the temperature is even lower than before. Is this what they call the doghouse? The experience. Definitely not great. Thursday evening, I was watching TV in the living room when she returned, her body weary. She looked exhausted, her face pale. I stood up, intending to pour her a glass of water, but she bypassed me, walking directly upstairs. Audrey, I called out. She paused, but didn't turn around. The Lees are making a big move recently. They've united several shareholders and plan to force you out at tomorrow's board meeting, I said. This intelligence came from Jax. Robert Lee, after my previous scare, didn't back down. Instead, he wanted to make a desperate last stand. Audrey's body visibly stiffened. She turned around, looking at me, her eyes bloodshot, her voice hoarse. That's no concern of yours, Mr. Vance. She called me Mr. Vance. My heart sank. I'm your husband, I said. A contractual husband. Nothing more, she scoffed. The agreement didn't say you could enjoy the life I provide while keeping other women on the side. I'm not, I retorted, a little agitated. That phone call was just from an old colleague. She sounded like she'd heard the funniest joke in the world. A colleague who calls you boss and says she's coming to play. I found myself speechless. I couldn't exactly tell her what I used to do, could I? Looking at her eyes filled with disappointment and sarcasm, a wave of irritation washed over me. Believe it or not, I gave up on explaining. Tomorrow's board meeting, watch your back. With that, I turned and went back to my own room. The moment the door closed, I heard a soft, suppressed sob from behind me. My heart felt like it had been pricked by a needle. The next day, I didn't go to the office. I sat in the study. My computer screen split into several windows. One was a live feed of Hays Industries' board meeting. Another was the Lee Group's internal network. And a third displayed the real-time stock market chart for the New York Stock Exchange. At the board meeting, several shareholders, led by Robert Lee, Brandon's father, indeed launched their attack. They cited the underground city project's massive upfront investment and unpredictable risks, accusing Audrey of misjudgment and demanding her removal as CEO. Audrey sat there alone, isolated and unsupported. She argued passionately, but the old foxes weren't listening. They had already conspired. With the vote about to begin, Audrey's face grew paler and paler. I picked up my phone and called Mr. Davies. Mr. Davies, it's showtime. Almost simultaneously, the doors to the boardroom swung open. Mr. Davies entered, a confident smile on his face, accompanied by his legal team. Ladies and gentlemen, my apologies for the interruption. Mr. Davies said in fluent English. On behalf of Global Capital, I officially announce that we will provide an additional $500 million in strategic investment to Hays Industries, specifically for the Underground City project. Furthermore, we will unconditionally support Ms. Audrey Hays as the sole project lead. At his words, the entire room erupted. Robert Lee's face instantly turned beet red. He had never imagined Mr. Davies would step in at this crucial moment, delivering a fatal blow. But it wasn't over yet. On another window of my computer, the Lee Group stock suddenly began to plummet. Countless sell orders flooded the market like a tide. Simultaneously, a bombshell news story broke on major financial websites. Lee Group under investigation for suspected massive financial fraud by the SEC. The evidence was what I had Jax dig up. Robert Lee's phone rang frantically. He answered, listened for a few moments, then slumped in his chair as if his bones had been removed. It's over. Everything's over, he mumbled. In the boardroom, the situation reversed instantly. The once aggressive shareholders now cowered like quail, afraid to speak. Audrey watched this dramatic turn of events, utterly bewildered. Subconsciously, she glanced towards the surveillance camera. Though she couldn't see anything, she knew that all of this must have been his doing. I watched her complex gaze on the screen, then shut down my computer. All right, the fire should be out now. Time to pick up my wife from the doghouse. When I drove up to Hays Industries, the board meeting had already adjourned. Employees were whispering about the astounding reversal that had occurred today. Did you hear? The Lees are toast. Their stocks almost bottomed out. Ms. Hays is incredible. She had such a backup plan. What, Ms. Hays is incredible. Didn't you see? It was Global Capital's Mr. Davies himself who came to back her up. I ignored them and went straight to the top floor. The CEO's office door was ajar. I pushed it open and saw Audrey standing alone in front of the massive floor-to-ceiling window, looking at the bustling traffic below, lost in thought. Her back seemed a little slender and somewhat lonely. I walked over and gently hugged her from behind. Her body stiffened, instinctively trying to pull away. Don't move, I whispered, my chin resting on the top of her head. Just let me hold you for a moment. She stopped struggling. We stood there, silently holding each other. After a long time, she finally spoke, her voice with a faint, almost imperceptible tremor. All of this, it was you, wasn't it? Yeah, I didn't deny it. Why? Because you're my wife. I turned her around to face me, looking into her eyes. No one gets to mess with what's mine. Her eyes instantly welled up. The 3-day-old layer of ice melted completely in that moment, turning into hot tears. Ethan Vance, you bastard. She pounded my chest. Cry like a child. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Do you know what I've been through these past few days? She was sobbing uncontrollably, unable to complete her sentences. I let her hit me, holding her tightly in my arms, gently stroking her back. I'm sorry. I messed up. I knew she wasn't angry that I kept things from her, but that I hadn't trusted her, hadn't explained. She cried for a while, then slowly calmed down. She lifted her head, her swollen red eyes fixed on me. Who was that woman who called you? She still hadn't forgotten that. I couldn't help but smile wryly. A woman's priorities, indeed. Her name is Skylar. She was a member of my old team, in charge of communications and intelligence. She's a bit flighty. I decided to be partially honest with her. I used to be in the military. Military? She was stunned. Yeah, special forces, I added. Her mouth fell open. Clearly, this answer was more outlandish than anything she had imagined. She looked me up and down, as if trying to find traces of a soldier on me. Then why did you? I retired. I interrupted her, my eyes darkening slightly. Because of some things I'd rather not talk about. She was smart. She didn't press further. She only reached out and gently touched my face. Then promise me, no matter what happens in the future, you won't lie to me again. You won't keep things from me. Her gaze was serious and persistent. Okay, I promise. I took her hand and kissed it, placing to my lips. Her face flushed again, but this time she didn't pull away. Also, she hesitated, whispering, now that the Lees are down, Grandpa, could you? Don't worry, I smiled. I've already handled it. When the Lees fall, new families will rise to fill the vacuum, but they'll be our people. Hayes Industries' position will only be more secure. As for your grandpa, he can relax and enjoy his retirement. She was utterly speechless. She realized that this man not only solved her immediate problems, but had also paved all the paths ahead of her. What he had done for her far exceeded the scope of a contractual husband. He was building a kingdom for her. Ethan Vance. She looked at me, her eyes hazy, her voice soft as a feather. How much have you really done for me? Not much. I leaned close to her ear, speaking in a voice only we could hear. Just happened to help you turn your world upside down. The news of the Lee family's downfall exploded like a bombshell across the entire Chicago business world. Hayes Industries, meanwhile, swiftly became the new dominant force. Audrey's position was unshakable. That weekend, we went back to the estate together. This time, those aunts and uncles looked at me completely differently. No longer disdainful or contemptuous, but respectful, even a little fawning. They showered me with compliments, calling me shrewd and capable, Audrey's pillar of support. Listening to their fickle flatteries, I found it amusing. Grandpa Hayes called me into his study alone. He sat in his armchair, looking much healthier than last time. Ethan, sit. I sat opposite him. The Lee family business, that was your doing, wasn't it? He asked directly. I just gave it a push, I said. Grandpa Hayes looked at me deeply, sighing. I truly didn't misjudge you. You're even more exceptional than your father was back then. I remained silent. I know you resent me, Grandpa continued. Your father's sacrifice all those years ago. I bear some responsibility, if not for covering me. Let's not dwell on the past. I interrupted him. I came this time to fulfill my promise. Now Audrey can stand on her own, and my task is complete. Grandpa Hayes fell silent. In the study, only the faint smoke of sandalwood incense curled upwards. You and Audrey. You too. We have a contract marriage. It expires in a year. Then we go our separate ways, I said calmly. Nonsense. Grandpa suddenly slammed his hand on the table, standing up agitatedly. I went to all this trouble to bring you two together, not for you to play make-believe. Ethan, I'm telling you, Audrey is a good girl. She's just been too sheltered since childhood. She doesn't know how to express her feelings. I've seen how she's been losing sleep and appetite over you these past few days. I was stunned. Grandpa, the study door suddenly burst open. Audrey stood at the doorway, her cheeks flushed, embarrassed, and anxious. She had clearly overheard our conversation. Audrey, perfect timing. Grandpa pointed at me. Tell him, do you like him or not? Audrey's face instantly turned so red it looked like it would drip blood. She looked at me, biting her lip, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, but she said nothing. Look, look, Grandpa stomped his cane impatiently. You two youngsters, why are you more hesitant than us old folks? Grandpa, don't pressure her. I stood up and walked to Audrey. She wouldn't look at me. her head bowed like a child who'd done wrong. I reached out, lifted her chin, forcing her to meet my gaze. Audrey, listen carefully, I said, each word clear and deliberate. I'm not helping you because of your grandpa's request, nor because of the $10 million agreement. I help you simply because I want to help you. I protect you simply because I want to protect you. It has nothing to do with anyone else or any promise. She looked at me, tears finally spilling from her eyes. Ethan, what I suddenly grinned, returning to my roguish self. I'm after your money, and I'm after you. Didn't you know that on day one? She let out a soft laugh through her tears, playfully punching my chest. You're annoying. Grandpa Hayes watched us flirting, finally breaking into a relieved smile. He waved his hand. All right, this old man can't stand to watch this. You too. Hurry up and give me a great-grandchild. That's the real business. Audrey's face exploded in crimson again. I wrapped my arm around her waist, whispering in her ear, Hear that? Wifey, we need to get to work. Her body softened, and she almost lost her footing. Returning from the estate, our relationship underwent a qualitative change. Although we still lived under the same roof, the atmosphere was completely different. She no longer slept in the guest room, but moved back into the master bedroom. Although there was still a demilitarized zone, pillow in the middle, to me, it was a huge step forward. She started smiling at me, though most of the time, she still habitually maintained a straight face. She would share interesting things from the company with me, and complain about which department manager was being ineffective. In front of me, she was no longer the aloof Ice Queen CEO, but an ordinary woman who would sometimes playfully tease and throw little tantrums. The Underground City project, under my remote control and her personal oversight, progressed very smoothly. Audrey demonstrated astonishing business acumen and leadership, managing the entire project meticulously. She grew more confident, more charming, becoming a true queen in the business world. And I remained the freeloader behind her. I reveled in it. Every day, I'd cook for her, wait for her to come home, listen to her talk about her day, and then hold her as we slept. This simple, warm life was the life I had dreamed of in a hail of bullets. The one-year term was fast approaching. That evening, after showering, she sat on the bed with her knees hugged to her chest, wearing the bear-themed pajamas I had bought her. Ethan, she suddenly called me. I was lying in bed reading. Our agreement. It expires tomorrow. Her voice was very soft. I put down my book and looked at her. So, the 10 million. I've prepared it. She took a check from a nightstand and handed it to me. I didn't take it. What do you mean? I looked at her. Try to discard me once I've served my purpose? I don't mean that, she protested, flustered. I just want to abide by the agreement. Agreement rescinded. I took the check and, in front of her, tore it in half. She was stunned. I leaned over, pinning her beneath me, taking her chin in my hand, and said menacingly, Audrey Hayes, listen to me. From the day you moved into my heart, you're not moving out. You think you can get rid of me with 10 million? No way in hell. I'm stuck with you for life. She looked at me, her eyes sparkling brightly. Then she reached out her arms and wrapped them around my neck. Okay, her voice held a trembling laugh. Then be stuck for life? She kissed me first. The moonlight outside the window streamed gently into the room. I knew that from tonight on, that extra pillow in the middle of the bed could be tossed away. My queen finally belonged entirely to me, and I would be her only knight for life.